In this video, we're going to explore how nutrients are cycled through an ecosystem and how the circle of life continues on and on. The biosphere consists of all areas on Earth where living things can be found, and that will include the surface of the Earth, but also the depths of the ocean and the atmosphere that's just found above Earth, because there are organisms that dwell there, or at least exists part of their life in the air, such as birds and insects. So energy is able to enter and leave the biosphere. Solar energy passes through the atmosphere and heats up the Earth and provides warmth, but also provides energy to plants to be able to produce food. We'll talk more about that. But the one thing that can't enter or leave is matter. We consider Earth a closed system. We can't create any more matter, any more resources. So we have to be able to recycle those resources over and over again. And if we can't recycle them, we'll be in deep trouble. So life and death are closely linked in ecosystems. When an organism dies, the materials in its body are returned back to the environment by decomposers and different types of organisms that break down the components in their body back to their initial resources or initial molecules. And then these materials are then used up by other organisms. So they'll pass through the ecosystem back to plants, and then the plants will be eaten and go back to an animal, and then that animal might get eaten by another animal, and so on. And eventually the last animal will die, the resources will be returned back to the earth, and so on. You're probably fairly familiar with the water cycle already, but we will review it again, just in case. So the water cycle shows how water cycles through the earth. So if we have some water, say in a lake or in a river or an ocean, as the sun's rays hit the water, some of that water is going to evaporate and become water vapor. So it'll go from a liquid to a gas. And that evaporated water will then rise in the atmosphere. And when it gets up to a cooler temperature, that vapor is going to condense back into liquid and form clouds. When you have so much water in a cloud, it will release once back to the earth as precipitation. So that could be rain, snow, sleet, etc., or even fog. And that precipitation will land on the earth, and then it will trickle back down into rivers and oceans and lakes and so on. And that cycle will happen over and over again. Now, one other change could be sublimation, and that's when solid water, so ice or snow, evaporates and then becomes, like, it skips the liquid portion. So it goes from a solid directly into water vapor, and then it condenses and so on. So that's the water cycle. The water that's on Earth is the same water that was here thousands or even millions of years ago. So the carbon cycle shows how carbon is cycled through the ecosystem. So it happens through the process of photosynthesis and cellular respiration, which we'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. But living things are made of what is called organic molecules. Organic molecules are molecules that contain carbon and hydrogen. So the source of carbon on Earth is the carbon dioxide that's found in our atmosphere. So plants are able to take in that carbon dioxide through the process of photosynthesis. And when they do that, they change the carbon dioxide into food, into sugars and other nutrients. And then animals will eat that plant, and then the plant's energy, the organic compounds that are found in the plant, will pass on to the animal, and then the animal will break down that food and then return the carbon that was found in the food back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. Now, so cellular respiration provides carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and photosynthesis takes the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. We'll talk also about the problem of combustion. So because we rely on fossil fuels and other carbon-containing molecules as fuel, when we burn them for energy or to generate electricity or for whatever reason, we're returning even more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that is a problem. So photosynthesis is when plants use the sun's energy, the sun's water, and carbon dioxide to build food, and that food is in the form of glucose or sugar. And oxygen is made as a byproduct, and we as animals and all living things require oxygen for the next process, which is cellular respiration. So if we just look here, so we have carbon dioxide, the formula for carbon dioxide is CO2, and we have water, H2O, and the sun's energy is contributing to build sugar, this molecule is glucose, and oxygen. So that's photosynthesis. So all organisms perform cellular respiration or respiration. So producers and consumers return carbon dioxide to the environment through this process. Sugar and oxygen are used to make energy, and the energy is in the form of a molecule called ATP. You'll learn more about that in later years. And water and carbon dioxide are made as byproducts. So the cycle then repeats. So if you notice from the image before, or the reaction before, we have the reverse now. So we had before carbon dioxide, water, and energy making sugar and oxygen. In cellular respiration, it's the opposite. So sugar and oxygen combine and interact to form carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So cellular respiration and photosynthesis are almost like opposite reactions. Now, we as humans have learned how to disrupt the carbon cycle. So millions of years ago, large amounts of plant material were buried under sediment, and the carbon got locked up, so to say, into the ground. And through time and intense pressure, those plant matters were converted to fossil fuels, and we're now using those fossil fuels for energy and to drive our cars, to act as a fuel to generate electricity, and we're releasing the carbon back into the atmosphere, which is increasing the greenhouse effect. So we have more and more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and carbon dioxide's job is to trap solar energy into the earth and warm it up. But with more carbon dioxide being added, our Earth's atmosphere is getting warmer and warmer, and that's causing some dangerous effects. The last cycle that we'll look at is the nitrogen cycle. So nitrogen is found in proteins and DNA, and it's crucial for all organisms' survival. But we have a hard time converting nitrogen gas, which is found in the atmosphere, into usable forms. So the atmosphere is actually 78% nitrogen gas. We need to be able to convert that into a usable form before we can use it. So these are all examples of good sources of protein. We need to be able to take that nitrogen gas and somehow make proteins from it. So there are some bacteria that can, we say, fix just means transform nitrogen gas and change it into nitrates. These bacteria make most of the nitrates in nature and are found in the soil and on the nodules of some plants' roots. So plants are then able to take the nitrates in, build proteins from it, then animals eat the plants and get the energy from them, and get the nitrates from them, and the cycle continues. So when an organism dies, decomposers break the nitrogen to simpler compounds like ammonia and nitrites, another type of compound. And other bacteria will be able to convert the nitrites into nitrogen gas in a process called denitrification, and the cycle continues over and over again. And that's how nitrogen is cycled through the environment.